Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Jesus on a John Boat. Man, I'm excited. This is an awesome episode already. Guys, this is my friend Kyle, Pastor Kyle. Man, he's someone that we went to the same college together, right? We went to Union College.
Yep.
You were kind of ending.
Yeah, you came in, I think, right at the end.
You were just leaving. And
I was doing my internship,
Yeah,
so we didn't see each other much.
Okay.
But at camp.
I did see you at camp. Many of times at my favorite camp, Broken Arrow. Shout out to Broken Arrow.
Yeah.
But Kyle, tell them a little bit about yourself. Just give us an overview of just who you are, what's life for you right now in general, just so they can get a sense of who's on our pod today.
Yeah, man, I don't know how deep you want me to go, all the way back or to right this moment.
Maybe a little just general, just a little
Okay. Cool.
What you want people to know right now.
Yeah, so my name's Kyle Smith, and I get the privilege of having many good friends, but who get to do cool ministry with, which is really a joy. It's one of my favorite things is to do stuff like this with friends. But probably biggest thing right now, I have a beautiful wife named Annie, and she is so patient and loving and amazing, and just she is such a blessing to me. And then I get to pastor in Kansas City. And my role is a little unique because I serve at the New Haven Seventh-day Adventist Church, but they hired me specifically to plant something on the campus. And so we've started a church basically within the church, which sounds really scary to a lot of people. But because of the beautiful relationship with my senior pastor and the church and the conference support, it's been really fun. And so lately I've been back in Kansas City after being here at Andrews, after going to Kettering for a bit as youth pastor. I got the call to go back there, and we've been doing church there for 2.5 years now. And
It's already been 2.5 years?
Already been 2.5 years. And so that's kind of where things are at now, professionally, home life. I'm a vulnerable guy, so we've also been on an infertility journey and things like that. And so life is a mixture of the good and the bad all the time, but grateful for friends, family, the church I'm doing, but that's kind of where life is at right now.
That's cool.
Finished my MDiv online.
Congrats.
Finally, last year, and so that's been nice.
Dude, I would see him on some Zooms. I would see him pastoring Zooms, and dude, that must have been crazy.
It was a nightmare, yeah. If you're a seminarian and you listen to this, please just stay and finish. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm grateful for leaving and going to Kettering midway through, but there's also so much good here to enjoy into. Yeah, and just the experience can be a lot less turbulent.
Yeah.
but I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
No, I had a few times where my conference was like, "Hey, do you want to step out?" And I was like, "I've heard from a few that it's probably best to stay. I mean, if I have to go, I'll go." But yeah, I agree. I just wanted to finish this chapter. But it's cool that you got to finish and you stayed true. I know there's some stories of some people that do not ever finish once they leave. So you really accomplished a lot there.
I was blessed to have really good teams of people around me, but also good senior pastors at the time who were helping me kind of balance it. So
cool. Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again for coming and taking the time, dude. This is Jesus on a John Boat. We talked a little bit about it, but for those who are just joining in, if this is your first time, I like to give the general idea of what it's all about. Always, it's two things. Jesus is the extra to our ordinary. That's what we're always saying here on this pod. And the same way he was in the disciples' boat, he's in our boat. And so we want to talk about a few different things like that. We want to we always ask our guests to explain their John boat. And what I mean by that, for me, my John boat is my life, my passions, whatever God is using in the ordinary spaces to do extraordinary things. So my humble John boat is fishing. That's my passion. If you're not at seminary here, if they know me, they know. Oh, Mikey, if he's not in class, if he's not doing something, he's fishing. He's out.
So that's a real Bass Pro Shop hat. That's not like you're a worship leader. Because all the hipster worship leaders have Bass Pro hats on, and you're always like, are you really about fishing or no? So.
I check people actually all the time. I check most people here even. Sorry if you're one of them, but yeah, I've checked. I'm like, yo, you fish? And they're like, nah, man, it's because it's in right now. And I'm like, oh,
But you've been about that life.
I've been about it. Being from
that.
Florida.
Yeah. That's even an old print. I can tell. It's not one of the new ones.
Yeah.
So
it's bent up.
We see you.
So
we see you. You know what it is.
So yeah, man. For me, that's my life passion. I give people tours and things, even on the river here. I'm not even from Michigan, but I'm learning and trying to give the seminarians or give people. So that's my passion. That's how
Do you have a John boat as well?
Well, I use actually Scott Ward's.
Oh, that's the guy.
For right now, until I can afford my own, or if y'all support and donate to the pod. No, I'm just kidding. But if
hook him up
with a boat for ministry, please. No, I'm just kidding.
Ministry purposes for the pod. We'll do them in the podcast next time.
That's the dream. That is the dream of the pod.
That could be cool.
This in a John boat. It is cold. He's got the beanie on, guys. It's still cold outside. Today's actually a really beautiful day, but it's still cold outside. I don't want to get people out there on the boat, and there's still a lot of ice out there on the boat.
It's true.
But yeah, that is the dream. That is the goal of the pod. But yeah, bringing it back, that's what I want when people come on the show to share. What is their John? It may not be fishing for you. It may not be, but what is your thing that you get to share Jesus in authentic, not even forced. It's just so natural. It's like, bro, like people got to know me better as a Christian through this, even sometimes better than preaching, better than pastoring, better than, this is how they got to know the real me. And so what is that John boat for you? What is your space? And what does it look like? Yeah, what is the extraordinary happening in your ordinary? Yeah,
that's a good question, man. I would say there's a couple things. One, I've been able to see God work in our marriage through this season of miscarriages and infertility and IVF, to where, in a way, that journey is a boat of its own that we've both gotten into together, and we're headed down the river. Yeah. And so it's been interesting to see God show up in different ways, and also meeting different people along that journey of meeting them where they're at and having greater empathy for them and a greater understanding of suffering. And so that's been a John boat where you would think of it as like a pit or like a boat with a hole in it. Yeah. Which has been challenging, but we've been able to kind of minister also in the midst of that with other people going through things. But then personally, maybe like in terms of hobby and such, recently I got back into skateboarding after like a 12-year hiatus. Wow. Like when I came to seminary, I kind of would roll around at the Niles skate park a little bit.
I've seen it. Right next to the movie theater and everything.
Yep. Me and Evan, I always call him Evan White, because of Sean White, the surfer, snowboarder guy. But me and Evan, a homie who I went to seminary with, we would always head out and go skate together, and that was always fun. But I got back into it like heavy a couple months ago, and it's been really cool to see God show up in just conversations I'm having with people, because like I'm not there as a pastor, I'm just there to like do my thing and enjoy and have a good time. And one thing that happened recently where I was like, oh man, this is like, God, you can show up, is I was there skating, and this guy, he came up to me and was talking to me, and he was a super cool guy, and we got to talking about his life and how he's been clean of drugs for a little bit. And like he grew up in just a completely like not atheistic home, but non-religious, non-spiritual, just whatever, just living. And so we were talking, and he was telling me about how like he's been experiencing through meditation this like feeling of being with himself and with like just this withness. Yeah. And it was interesting because I was like, yo man, like same. Like when I pray, it's not meditation per se, but like in my spiritual practices, when I pray and I feel this same withness, and I was like, I believe it's God. And I was like, that's kind of, the whole point. And he was like, that's really beautiful. I've never heard it described that way. And I was like, yeah, that's the point of like God came to be with us, like in Emmanuel. And he was like, yo, my name's Manny, and which I knew his name was Manny, but he said, my name is actually Emmanuel. That's what my name means. And I was like, yeah, bro, your name means God with us. And he was like, dang. So like my name, when I talk to people, I'm telling them that God is with them. And I was like, yeah, you are. And it was actually cool for me because I mentioned the infertility stuff because it's put me at times in seasons where you do wonder if God is with you. And I had prayed in the car before that skate session, like, hey God, like I just need something. like to know, because we had another miscarriage this last November.
Wow.
And so I just needed him to like show me he was with me. And then I meet this dude who doesn't know Jesus, but he knows he's been experiencing this witness. And then he's like, yeah, my name is God with us. And I just was like, you know what? Maybe God is with me. Like, he's just these small reminders. So yeah, and I love this theory of John boat. I grew up fishing with my uncle in Illinois. The great Illinois.
That's how it starts, brother.
And amen, brother. And I it's cool, man. I remember getting in the boat, and yeah, you just get to have these good conversations about life.
Yeah. I'm gonna put the record on. He's the first guest to actually know what a John boat is. So I thank you, brother. I thank you for it.
Hey, bro. Grew up little blue collar. So
it's cool.
You know?
It's something that, like, that's how I think many of us start. We start with someone like a grandfather, a father, an uncle, somebody that like just you're like, this is everything for them. It may not be everything for me, but like it became everything in the sense of our conversations, our moments.
Well, I didn't grow up with I met my dad at 16, and so my uncle Kevin, shout out to him if he ever sees this, but he took it kind of on himself really young. Like, he was gonna always bring me into his wood shop because he's a carpenter, and he would, when I'd go to visit in the summer as a little boy, we'd work on stuff in his wood shop, and then he'd take me out on the John boat and we'd go fishing. And so I love this concept because the John boat was just kind of one of the only intentional moments of a man pouring into my life growing up. And I think it's a beautiful concept, even then when you apply it biblically.
Yeah,
so
like, that's cool that it had a place in your heart. I had no idea. You did not share this with
No,
me.
I didn't. So not at all, yeah.
When I invited you, and I didn't think, oh, he must think like, yeah, like most people think it's kind of like, oh, I see the gimmick, Mike, you're into fishing. And
nah, when you said John boat, I was like, I'm down. This could be cool.
That means a lot, man, because most people are just like, yeah, I'll do it for Mikey. More so, like, but you're actually like, not only doing it because you're my friend, but also like you like the idea and the concept. It's cool when people enjoy the concept too.
It speaks to certain people, bro. And
but something I didn't want to overlook, man. It's I'm sorry that, you know, everything that you share. I don't want to dwell on it too long or anything, but but I just wanted to acknowledge you and say, man, like, I've got family members in my life, including my own mother. Multiple in her life, and I just want to say, like, from what she's told me, it's
terrible. It's terrible, and I appreciate you, like, reaching out and about that, man. Like, and for those of you listening, if you're going through it, like, just, it's so hard. I'm sorry. And the only thing I've been able to kind of reconcile is that Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. So he was honest with us about it from the beginning. So I know that I don't need to blame him, because he's told us an enemy has done this. And so just protect your heart and your theology, I would say, like, as you face these things, because I think the woundedness can, I'm not trying to spiritually disassociate, you have to work through these things, but then you can also see his witness in those moments more so.
I also I didn't share this. The story I'm about to share with you, I didn't share it with you beforehand. Again, a lot of this wasn't planned, but this is here in the moment, so thank you for sharing.
It's a John boat, bro.
This is the John boat, yeah. So man, like, I bring up my mom because, like, that had been her story for so long. I mean, she was married once before my dad. It was like her college sweetheart, and they had multiple, like I think like to 4 or 5, I think. And so
it's so hard for her, bro.
And then he passes away. And so I'm telling you, like, I'm asking her, like, this is my mom. She's like the prayer warrior. She's like, I'm like, Mom, I ask her, like, many times in my life, like, you really thought God was with you after all that? Like, you really? And she's like, I struggled like any human person, but I did continue to put my faith. I mean, having all those miscarriages, losing your husband, and then she marries my dad, and then, like, I had a lot of complications being born, so I'm like I believe they call it the rainbow baby, like after the storm. And so I want to, like, being as a rainbow baby, I want to give you hope, you know, if it could work for my mom, you know, if God could do a miracle there.
Thanks, bro.
And there's been things even after that have happened, you know, in my mom's life, but but I just want to say, like, I have family members, like, this is a really deep thing that really happens, and my mom was like, no one can understand. Only person who's been through it can really understand.
It's true.
So,
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I may not, in terms of I haven't been through it, but my mom, I know, my mom telling me her whole life, her story. It's just, so I just want to pour into
you have a soft spot for it and
I do.
empathy for it. It's good.
So
Thank you, bro.
I know that if she could see hope in it, I know you're seeing it, and I can see that. But bro, like God somehow finds a way, even within multiple times of saying, like, where most people would have given up, we keep putting our faith in Him, and He's with us.
And I've noticed that too. Like, it doesn't work for everyone. Yeah. But I've noticed as well that a lot of the people it does work for, it's like they never gave up. They they might have had moments of like surrender and like change of plans and so something I've kind of been clinging to is just the concept of the Lord will provide. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that means like for us, a biological child, an adopted child, some kid when we're 50 and he's like 16 and needs people to call his like adopted family, like maybe that would happen. I don't know, but God will provide. And I think like that's the place of brokenness that He's been kind of trying to get me to wrestle in. And I think we all have to wrestle with that in different places. Like, the idea of dreams and those dreams not working out, and can you come to the end of those dreams not working out? We did 4 rounds of IVF, and there's no more medical stuff that can be done. So you then have to say, is Jesus more than enough? Is like if this doesn't work and we don't have a child, and we never have a child. One, I do know it's not His fault, but we get bitter because we're like, you could.
We've read things.
And
seen things.
Not really considering the whole grand craziness of free will and how He has to do so much to try to work within those concepts. And, but yeah, I think you come to a point where you finally surrender it and you say, you'll do your thing and provide somehow. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And we don't know what that means or where it'll go, but there is a peace that's come with it, because it's almost just like, okay, like, are you more than enough? If you are, then that's enough for us. And that's hard to say and accept, and it's easy to say it on a podcast, whatever.
But to actually experience it.
But I think the last miscarriage really made me like, okay, like seriously, like I give you the dream, it's done, like you can have it, and you are more than enough. And with that, do I see you as a genie that was supposed to give me this, or do I see you as the Jesus who came to a very broken world because of sin, and you were with us in the midst of it? And so I think a lot of times our view is like, oh, Jesus is going to fix it, or Jesus will fix it. And Jesus, not just because of the American gospel, right, but because we read all these stories in the Bible. But then we forget that, like, when He went into a village and healed all the people living there, it was probably like 12 people, first of all, because it was very small villages. Yeah. And He didn't do that in every village. He didn't heal everybody. Yeah. And so I could keep ranting about that, but I think the point is that you can kind of start to say, is the point of Jesus really to just like fix everything? Or did Jesus actually say that it would be pretty rough, but His biggest promise all throughout Scripture is, I will be with you always. What the enemy means for evil, I'll turn for good. And that to me is a different mindset. Yeah. One is disappointment in God because of what He isn't doing. The other is an acceptance that we're in a cosmic warfare situation where the enemy does have some dominion, and we right now are trusting in Jesus to make good of those circumstances. Yeah. And when He can step in, when free will allows, He does. Yeah. But who am I?
And then there's the hope of the future. There's the things we haven't experienced yet.
Exactly.
The now and the not yet, and the wait. What do they say? How do they?
Yeah, like that you can the now, the not yet, and what's yet to come, or something. Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're trying to say. Just they say with sanctification, they say it like your sanctification is something you experience at the point of your, acceptance. It's something that's happening right now and something that will happen. So similar
it's
vibes.
continually, yeah. So no, I thank you for that. That to me is profound, and many people experience this, and that's something that they need to hear.
And I think it applies to other things too. Like maybe you haven't had a miscarriage, maybe you're 18 listening to this and you're like, But even I think every season of our life, there's these things where we have really big expectations. God is this being that's supposed to love us and want what we want, or what
we think is best for us.
And even a lot of those things are natural from him. So then it's confusing, but then it's just stepping back and realizing he doesn't even always get what he wants because of sin. So
that right there is a deep concept, that he doesn't always get what he wants. And that's what we live on our hope for, the hope of Jesus. And that's what I don't want to get too preachy about it, but yes, I just want to agree with you.
We could go on all day. That's when you're friends and pastors, you could just keep it.
But the thing I wanted to say there is, like, of what you just shared, not many pastors would be willing to share is one thing. Not just in the vulnerability side, but at the same thing as, like, I've experienced in different maybe cultures within churches. I don't even say just Adventist. I think just like across the board, like, we kind of think that we always have to share what's like joyful in order to glorify God, or what's like we're gonna hold it in and like push it down, and then that doesn't give God glory,
we forget that there's a whole book called Lamentations. Where people lamented. And then you have Job, which is just this guy crying out. And then you have the Psalms, where David is probably, honestly, clinically, has some clinical mental health issues there, like genuinely. And so I hear you. It's like kind of like isn't God good? He loves it. Like, yes. And what I think is so good now is that when I'm in the pit, he's so good that he's in the pit with me. And I love that, because it's not always this whole like, he'll pull you out and give you the 5-car garage, or no, sometimes you don't see how he's going to do it. And sometimes he's like, yo, I'm still cooking, so let me cook. Let me work this for good. But I'm with you right here in this pit.
It's crock-potting right now.
Yeah, like I'm with you. And I think that's, again, why it, like, over and over is like, do not fear, for I am with you, right? Like, that is so much the message of Scripture, because he doesn't promise to fix everything. I think because of sin, and don't hear what I'm not saying, but like, if he was to stop every time the chair fell over and we never felt the effect of gravity, how do we know sin is really bad? How do we really know that his character is just and that what he says is actually true? And so it's not even just that I think he's like, it's not him being like, it's him more being like, oh man, like, yeah, you fell over in that chair and I couldn't stop it every time, because gravity's real, and like, you need a world to live in that has rules like gravity, but also, I hate to see you fall, my son. Like, I don't know. I could go on about theodicy forever. That's kind of been my thing, but I know we have other things to talk about.
No, for sure. But yeah, I just know I've experienced it, like, where people will, like, when I show any real, I don't want to say even, because I think we just make it negative. It doesn't have to be negative, but like, even something as simple as like, when I've like, I was at a potluck making something, and like, it just wasn't going my way, and I was like, man, like, I started kind of complaining about it. I was like, man, it normally goes good, and then the one was like, Pastor, you can't be like that. Like, you can't. I was like, what? Like, can't be like that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, can I just share? Like, I'm frustrated. Jesus was frustrated with the people flipping tables at times. Jesus was like
I think there's this. I think especially right now in the church with like younger dudes, there's this like, and dude is a term for girls, guys, everybody, but there's this like, there's been a lot of great work done by people on accepting who we are in Christ and accepting our forgiveness of sin, and that we can walk in that freedom. But then on the flip side, I've seen an issue with some of it where, and I'm not trying to call any people out in particular at all, because I've seen it in all different kinds of groups, but like where we've accepted those things at the expense of a theology of brokenness or woundedness. And something I've discovered as someone that's struggled with addictions, who has struggled with miscarriages with my wife, who has struggled with all kinds of different things in my life, is that there are some things that I can't just say, oh, God is good, brother. Like, no, but like for real, I went to one of my friends recently, and I'll be vulnerable again. I was like, yo, man, I got diagnosed at 30 with ADHD, and I'm 31 right now. So it's been like a year of learning. And they said, oh, brother, like, I have ADHD too, but like, I don't believe those lies from the enemy, you know? And so it was kind of like spun as this like lie from because there's not a theology of brokenness, that we live in a broken world. We are all wounded from this place. We come into the world wounded. And so, yes, it's not who I am as someone with mental health issues or ADHD, but it's something that my wounded body carries that actually, if I don't treat it, will create lies and loops and patterns in my mind that stop me and distort the image of God as it properly should be in my head.
It needs to be processed accordingly.
Yeah,
to
like
experience even what's better for you later.
Yeah, like if I don't process, like even our miscarriages, bro. Like someone was like, "Oh, brother, you're in Christ. Like, don't identify with that. You know that's not what you need to identify with." Yes, I know that that's not my identity, but I need to go grieve with my wife.
There's real things,
you know,
going on right now,
and I call it spiritual disassociation, where we just disassociate with. Brother, just have faith, you're good. Like, and now it looks more like you're free from that. You don't need to think about that. And it's like, yo, yes, I know I'm free, but also I know that I'm broken. And there's many places in Scripture for brokenness to exist with freedom.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's he sits in it with you. Like, he doesn't like tell you, it's almost like a spiritual, like, he doesn't know. He's like, no, I know you. Like when we talk about the woman of the way, he's like, no, I know you've been married. I know you have this husband. I know you're. Yeah. Just tell me how it is, because like I already know. Like. Just
and then he wasn't even like divorce him, do this, do that. He just said, "You're forgiven. Go and sin no more." Yeah. What did go and sin no more mean? Well, she had just talked to Jesus, and hopefully he had told her what that would look like. You know, I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah.
But he didn't.
That's between him and her.
That's between him and her.
And what it would look like for you, that's just an invitation for us to get the same thing, whatever that our conversation would be.
Because we all have different hitches in our giddy up.
Yeah.
That's what I like to say. Like, you might not be someone who is LGBTIQ struggling with going to your family and wrestling with sharing that with them and the complexity of that and what your life could look like. But you're also maybe not someone who has seasonal depression that's hitting them all the time and they're struggling and wrestling. And I guess my point is, like, we all just have different things that we're wrestling with and we're trying to understand, and whether it's sexuality or, and I'm not trying to compare sexuality to mental health. That's not why I'm using these two in tandem. I want to be clear about that. But, that's why we have all these different things around these topics, I think, because we're trying to, when really I think we just need space to be able to sit together and sit in the brokenness and say, yo, this is what's up with me. This is what's up with you. Oh yeah, this is what I'm going through. This is my experience. How do we move closer to healing and wholeness together if we're all on a journey to wholeness,
Yeah. I just think of the idea that when he called anyone in the Bible, it wasn't like, well, this is my prereqs to be following me. It's like, no, as you follow me, you're going to shed some things. As you follow me, you're going to be challenged by things. As you follow me, you're going to address things that you probably weren't ever going to see in your life before without me. And then you'll see a better way.
And let me be the one to address them too.
Yeah.
Like there's people I know, there's a member who recently got off of meth, and some of the church members, we have a smoking area at my church for people to go smoke. Not because we're like supporting it, but the other solution is they walk across a busy road and go to the grocery store, and they have to stand like an orphan over there to smoke, which says you're not one of us if you're still doing this. And so we set up a smoking area at the end of the campus. And one of the members came up to me and was really pressed about this one person smoking because they've been in the church for a year now. And I just was like, yo, here's the thing though. Like, a year ago when they got here, they were doing meth. And they were homeless, and they were not like close to Jesus at all. And now they're smoking, but they're smoking at church. Like they're coming to, like they showed up. Like, and this homie that I'm talking about, literally, this dude took a bus to church. He's homeless, so he slept he'll always say this to me. He's like, and I'm sad to say this, but he actually just recently passed away because of the cold in Kansas City. But it's terrible. But what he would do, and I almost cry when I say this, because he would take the bus from downtown to my church, which was about 20 minutes away, but the bus takes forever. He'd get to Commons entrance at about 3 a.m, and there's this little alcove right by the entrance, and he would go and he would sleep there. And I would get to church, and he would always be ready for the door to open, and he'd just be saying, man, I just felt so close to Jesus. I just laid here and looked up at the stars and was looking at Jesus, and we were talking, and I just love getting to be here. And to me, that was so amazing, because I was like, this guy is like literally going from the free meal downtown on Friday that he knows he can eat dinner at. He's then taking the bus, getting here at 3 a.m., sleeping on grass, but he really loves Jesus, and this is like the highlight of his week.
Dang.
And people are pressed that he's smoking a ciggy.
And then compared to meth, it's like
compared
that's
to
a
meth,
win.
Yeah,
that's like the
best and I should clarify. I started this story talking about another one of our members, a lady who was doing meth and stuff. But this fellow was one of the people that would go smoke with her. Mm-hmm. And so if it was unclear, sorry about that. But they didn't really mention her because they're trying, but she's not houseless anymore. So they just were kind of like, why is she still smoking? But with him, they were very much like, why is he here? He's at the door too early. And I'm like, yo, he's here at 8 a.m. because he slept here. So yeah, like, I guess that's my thing, is just, I don't even remember what your original question was, but
but it's still awesome.
But I guess the thing is, like, yeah, people will get bent out of shape about certain things, and you just have to, roll with the punches.
Yeah, I think we've definitely covered the life that is your boat right now, man. So thank you, thank you for that. No, guys, I get into it, so I'm awesome. This is awesome for me. I think I just want to transition into kind of finishing that segment, but before we dive into the bigger segment, just like in the middle something, I kind of, because you've had the privilege of serving in different capacities and seeing pastoral, like your experience overall, like what evangelism and what all these things look like. You've seen it in different stages over the years. What's been kind of cringe, what's worked, what hasn't. Take us in, like, what now, like 2025 today, what are we getting right, or what you guys in your context, because every context is different, as we know. But just like, what do you feel like is going right, and what do you feel like in other areas is like, we really need to stop adopting this and like and go in a different direction?
I'm about to get canceled, I know. So here's a hot take I have. I don't think we need young adult groups anymore.
Like small groups in general?
Small group is okay. But when you say, like, we have a young adult ministry.
Oh, like categorizing it in our churches.
I think we need to start hiring people. This is just a thing I've been seeing over the ages of my small career of 8 years or 9 years, whatever. That, like, we'll hire... So millennials went into to churches, and we said, we need this church to look like this, and then we'll come. And then a lot of the churches did that, or they said, kick rocks, and the horse you came in on, and they left. But then millennials would have the church change, and then still we would be like, we don't know, can you change this? Lasers, we need lasers. And then they would change it, or they would fight, and then more people would leave. Point is, like, millennials were always trying to change church all the time. And so Gen Z has kind of grown up in this culture of, like, what is hymns? What is, like, if you just go
into the old stuff,
if you just go to, like, not some Adventist churches is not the same, but if you just go, they don't know what contemplative prayer is. They don't know what, confession is, like the spiritual disciplines. They don't, because our generation overcorrected and was like, no, we need lasers and fog and lights, which there's nothing wrong with that stuff. But at the same time, we've streamlined it down so much that it's like sterile.
Yeah.
So now what I'm noticing is there's all these young adult ministries, but now everyone's like 45 and it's weird because they're not actually young adults.
Yeah.
Because they never were a young adult group. They were a contemporary church under the skies of young adult, which is what 90% of young adult ministries are in at least the North American division. It's that, oh, well, the church, they want the young people around, but they're not really that willing to change the culture. So we'll let you
trust them.
Yeah, you can have the room in the basement and start a young adult group, which was great. But then like what ends up happening is the transition from going from that young adult room to the sanctuary never happens because
It becomes its own church essentially.
Well, because fundamentally the issue wasn't that they needed something for young adults to do. They needed a service that looked like who they truly were. And so they got this service and it was meeting the need of what they were longing for and desiring, but now they're 44. So what was the problem? Was it that they didn't have young adult stuff, or was it that they needed a modern expression of worship on the campus? And so what I'm proposing, it isn't that we just get rid of young adult pastors, get rid of these, that's needed, but let's stop hiding contemporary modern ministry under the skies of young adult ministry. Then what does young adult ministry actually look like? Well, maybe we can start hiring public campus ministers in our cities. Maybe we can start working with ACF. Maybe we can start forming actual things on campuses for young adults that are students, not 31-year-olds that are still hanging on to the young adult group because they like electric guitar and drums. So keep your young adult groups, that's great. But if you're going to do like a contemporary thing and you're starting a young adult group for the sake of having one, for the young people, but everyone's, just do it.
Yeah.
And stop, because what we've done now is we've created this thing where you have like the church board with all the people that are like, well, we're the real church. And then you have the young adults who are the actual like power life, doing things, showing up to volunteer. And I say young adult, it's like now 45-year-olds even, but they're the young professionals like leading. They're executives at Advent Health or whatever, and we're like, go to the young adult Sabbath school.
Yeah,
no, that doesn't exist outside of the church. You know what I'm saying? We still need ministries though for our students. So if you're a collegiate student, but like really there just comes a point where we've created young professional Sabbath schools, which also never like existed because we're too afraid of like making people angry. Like, well, we're not going to go to board and actually ask that we could start, an adult Sabbath school that looks like, but we'll start a young professional one. And no one cares because young professional. And then you have this young professional Sabbath school with like 30 people that none of them are young adult, and most of them work blue collar jobs. So are they like, it's just, what are we really trying to do?
Yeah. Just be clear.
So that's my long story short, is one of the cringe things, I guess, or one of the things I think we could do better right now is it's not doing young adults. It's not just doing a contemporary service, whatever. Just let them be a thing. Let them be their own thing. Like but it takes kind of saying, hey, the church's vision now isn't just to do X, Y, and Z. It's we're going to give a seat at the table. And this is where like growing young and stuff has been cool just for a lot of churches because they realized they needed to let people at the table. But and then you said the other one was a best practice or something.
I would say, like what needed to change, what needs to shift, but then also like what have you seen that like you're like, man, this is actually working? Like if you have anything like that.
Yeah. I would say I've seen it in a couple places so when I was at Kettering as youth pastor, they had Ascent and the Sanctuary service. And then they have at Keene Church, where my buddy Anthony Leiter is, Leiter. Tony's out there, and they have Elevate, and then they have, the traditional service. And you go down to Loma Linda, my homie Jesse's out there, they have Anthem, and then Loma Linda's first, second, third service. So what I'm seeing happen is like in Alan Martin kind of, Mike Tucker, those guys with YG Church in Arlington back in the day, they really kind of, at least to my knowledge, I don't know who came before them, but they did a lot of the groundwork. But I'm loving that there are all these, and there's people who don't believe in this. They think it does not work, but there's all these kind of, I call them fellowships within the churches. So you have churches that are saying, we will look at ourselves as a campus, and we will have the senior pastor be like the CEO. When you look at Advent Health, they have regional offices. This is just the context I work in. And they'll have a regional CEO, and then they'll have a CEO for each hospital. So West Lenexa, or City Center Lenexa, or South OP, or Shawnee Mission. And so what I'm seeing happen all over is that there's senior pastors saying, you know what? Let's create like this regional model here where we have, different fellowships on the campus, and they are free and they can operate and they can live, and they still report to me, but I'm more of a support, And so I'm seeing this happen more and more. And what I love is that I'm seeing buildings like at New Haven where you have a massive campus. Half the building was empty every Sabbath morning because people didn't worship down at the gym. And now we've had 317 people last Sabbath in there, like max capacity. And New Haven is full over on their end too. So we're utilizing the whole campus, and Loma Linda's doing this, Keene is doing this, and I think that this is something.
You're coexisting beautifully.
We're coexisting beautifully because I think there was a generation of pastors before our generation who were kind of the spearheads, who had to like make the way. And a lot of them thought the end goal was to plant their own church, and for some of them it was. And I think now a lot of us younger guys or girls who are planting these things, we're going, hey, like, we don't need to plant our own church, but we want to plant a congregation, And so if we can, at New Haven, we use the word, we're one house, 2 rooms, 3 fellowships. And what that means is we're one campus as New Haven, 2 worship centers, commons, sanctuary, 3 fellowships. We have an African fellowship, commons, and the sanctuary fellowship.
That's cool.
All of which have their own board that reports to the New Haven board. So it's a totally different model, but you're seeing it pop up in different places. And if you're listening and you're doing something like this, like, we're trying to all kind of band together and unite and make models that work, because our generation doesn't really want to leave. We want to stay. We want to keep pouring into these beautiful campuses. And bro, I need a senior pastor. He helps me so much.
Oh yeah. I think that many people are really shifting towards this because they're just seeing like, man, everything else hasn't really been working, and maybe attitudes need to shift. And I've seen where some kind of have tried getting there, but I think egos need to get in check. On the leaderships of all of them, and then respect, it feels like the evening of we know that the greater respect in your group it has to be New Haven altogether. Like that's the big,
the campus. It's like we are New Haven is the organization, if you will.
But you have to respect that.
But New Haven has said we want to have different franchises of us, if you will.
Wow.
Like, we want to have an African group. We want to have Commons, that's a contemporary expression. We want to have the Sanctuary, which is a great, beautiful, blended experience. But
not super heavily control the growth and process of that.
No. The way it works is like the New Haven board, like so at least in Commons' sake and the African Fellowship, etc., though we all have a vision board that members on our vision boards are on the New Haven board. And so they're all wrestling together with the broader campus, but there's this trust that the vision boards, they know and understand their fellowship.
Wow.
So we're not going to make decisions. So there are campus-wide ends, like goals that we are making as a campus. So like one is that everyone has adopted the vision to love more. Kind of started with a ministry called 7 we started back in the day, spread to the whole campus. So we know that the church board, one of their ends is how are we, Commons, what's the means by which we're hitting those ends? And so they don't get involved in the means, they don't get involved in how we do it, they don't get involved in even what's going on really. It's just, are we sticking it together on campus? Are we all moving in a similar direction? How's it going over there? And it's been such a unique thing that we want to see just replicated, but it takes New Haven's church board being really open-minded, senior pastor being super, super, super humble and not seeing it as a threat, but really as a way to bless the campus, in which he's grown his campus by 400 people because of Commons. Like, that's only blessed children's ministries and all the different ministry. Like, so when you collaborate, it's just so much stronger, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know,
that's pretty cool.
Instead of having to go out and start a church and then come up with a children's group and a youth group and a young adult group, brother.
just using each other in beautiful ways. It's not like you're a campus together. You're unified.
And part of the model, I got the idea from here, where you have, when I was assistant chaplain interim at the uni, I sat on Dwight Nelson's staff, and like One Place Fellowship and New Life Fellowship, they all kind of reported back to that staff. And it works because, you know, they have their own group of pastors and leadership at one place, but it's still held accountable by PMC, and there's a good relationship there. Yeah. At least when I was working here. So
no, overall, I mean, I've helped with some of these, and I've felt that same way, where it's like, like they let them organically be their identity, who they are, but we all know we still serve the same campus and we still under the same umbrella. And so like
I'm not trying to plant a church in downtown KC. Now if New Haven said, hey, Commons is really going well and we would love to see you guys plant a church elsewhere, that would be really sad to us. So our goal would be, could we plant another campus like downtown? And then still it's a part of this, because again, it's like we just don't need to. You see all these little church plants in certain cities, and I won't throw shade, but like you'll have a church with 150 people in attendance, and then they'll say, we need to plant a church. And then they'll plant another campus when their own sanctuary could still hold 300 or 400 people. And so they're not really planting out of abundance. They're kind of planting because it's like maybe, but it's like usually because it's like, oh, the conference has a cool initiative and they want us to plant churches. And it's cool, but it's like, why don't we fill the room first, and then out of this abundance do something beautiful? Yeah,
the true need.
Yeah, that's how it's like more organic, and not like we dreamed this up in a board meeting and had to rush around to find people to plant this church, and we're having the hardest time. Yeah, because you didn't actually have a group of people that were like organically, passionately trying to start something. Do this, And let's just focus on your church that could seat 300 right now. Yeah, these are all my opinions, and maybe I'm a jerk. I don't know.
No, I share many of the same ideas. Like
to me, it's just like clout grabbing in a way. Not, and I know the hearts of a lot of dudes doing this, so I know it's not. But it's like, what is actually the point of planting another campus when your campus isn't full? Like, so you know, that's kind of
doing everything it could be doing. Another.
It's like, are you trying to prove something? Are you trying to like? This isn't about us. Like, there's nothing to prove. Like, church planning, all these things, like, it's for the Lord. So, like, cool. It might be a cool initiative. And I kind of say this because there's so many young dudes right now that don't want to go into youth and young adult ministry. And they're, like, wanting to just go right out the gate and do, like, a Commons or plant a church out of their church they just got. And it's like, yo, honestly, like, I've been a pastor almost 10 years and I still don't know anything. So, like, bro, just... Yeah. It's good to be an associate. It's good to fill the church you're in. It's good to, so.
That's what, like even we were talking a little bit before this of like even me jumping in. I shared things from my church I'm about to be in, but no, like it's good stuff. But it's like, what the board had casted to me and what Carmen, my wife, and trying to, what can we do in our own story? Like, what can that look like? It wasn't like they were like, hey, can you be a Kyle for us? Like, can you replicate Commons over there?
It doesn't work. Like, and I'll say this, like, and I hate even saying this because it sounds like I'm trying to sound cool, but like, I've had a lot of people recently hit me up like, hey, we want to start a Commons, we want to do it. And like, I am so down to sit and chat church with people. Let's do it. But like, please just start something natural and organic. You like, if you don't have a name and you want to use Commons, we'll let you use it. Cool, whatever. But it's like, let's try to find a cool name that's organic to your area. Like, we don't need more Commons. And I love Crosswalk, respectfully. Like, Commons is an affiliate church of Crosswalk. We're not a campus, but we're an affiliate because we wanted to, collaborate with them and have a seat at the table. But we have our own brand. And so Crosswalk worked with us and they created this affiliate thing, similar to how Hillsong had the Hillsong Family Network. And so they had churches like Judah Smith's church or VU Church or Zoe Church or Mosaic that were their own churches, but hey, we're all in the same alignment. Yeah. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Like Crosswalk is creating that other side of the table where we don't need just Hillsongs, we don't need just crosswalks, we don't need start a beautiful thing where you're at, and just lean into it organically. Don't do it in a church business meeting. Like, just get a group of people together and do something special. Like, and if it looks like Commons, cool. If it looks like Crosswalk, cool. If it looks like Clean Church that Billy's doing up in Portland, cool. Whatever it looks like, do it. You know,
something that like, I've always wanted to live by that, because like even in our like hiring board, like when they were hiring, the big question is, well, what's your vision and what's your this? And I was like, just looked them all in their face, and hey, if the board members watching this, you were there, so you know, it's a beautiful thing. Like, I'm sharing this in a beautiful way. Like, I looked at them and I was like, I can't have one because I don't know you guys yet.
And that is such a good answer, bro.
I can't give you, like, I was a businessman, as you know, I was a union businessman. I could go and fluff it up and tell you, well, I'm gonna first and do, you know, and it just isn't real. It isn't authentic. So I said, I know I'm young. I know I'm going to go to work for you. I can promise you that. I'm going to do stuff. What those things are going to exactly be,
we'll figure it out when I'm here.
We'll figure it out as we go. But yeah, I was like, these are the things I'm passionate about. So I'm like, evangelism, these things, you know.
It's good to have like a vision for your ministry, but then how, again, like the ends are these things you're saying, but like the means by which you do it, you're going to figure it out when you're there.
I can't tell you. Yeah. And so I always, tell people, because a lot of people even say, I don't know, it's like they want the keys to success. They want, because they're used to social media. They're used to the Goggins. They're used to to somebody be like, yo, you need to get off your chair and just, these are the 5 things you better be doing, because if not, you're lame. Like, it's like, no, it's like maybe ministry, Jesus.
And I really just believe that those kind of videos are super lame now. Like, like, to be honest, I'm a hater, because it's like, no, it's not 5 things. Or even when people are like, take 5 seconds right now to clear your conscience of sin with Christ. And they lead this like weird prayer on Instagram.
I've seen that.
And I'm just like, or like, we just teach people how to, like, to pray. Like, talk about why they should do that or something, you know?
What's really working for Kyle, or what's really
like, hey,
what's really in my life,
Like that dude I told you guys about, like Manny. Like, I didn't tell him anything about how I do my prayer and devotion. I just
come
was
into
like,
Commons and
I just was
rope them in somehow.
Like, yeah, man. Like, when I take time to connect with God, who I receive my spiritual, fulfillment from, Yahweh, the God of heaven, like, I experience the same kind of vibe, bro. Like, that's super cool that you're experiencing that. And then we have to be willing as Christians to say, what if Jesus is meeting people in 1,000 different places? And so I'm not saying when he's meditating that's another path to Jesus, but is Jesus willing to meet him right there in the midst of his meditation and say, hey, I'm here. I'm trying to reach you. And I know you don't know this is me right now talking, because we're in this thing you're trying to do right now to get some sort of thing, but I'm still going to talk, and I'm going to get you sometime. And then he runs into me talking about the witness, and hopefully maybe now he'll be wrestling with, why did this Christian guy know the with thing? And then maybe he'll meet another Christian, or we just don't know. Like, that
definitely covers what we're talking about here. I think the last thing, and we're getting close to the end, but I always have it. I love this segment. This is my favorite, fishy faith. And so for those who don't know, fishy faith is like the things, I like to use the analogy of saying, like, when you're eating food and it smells fishy, tastes fishy, what you're consuming when it is fishy and bad, it gives you food poisoning. It harms you. It harms the people, harms anyone who consumes it. Spiritually, I think the same thing happens. If you're like smelling something faith-wise that's fishy, when you're tasting, you're like, ooh, like, I'm experiencing this, and it's just fishy, man. It's just hurting. It's either hurting other people or it's hurting me, and let's talk about it. So what's the fishy faith experience that either you've been seeing or experiencing yourself, that or your people, the people you're pastoring, like, what is something you're like, man, I want this to go away with, because it's just it's a lot.
I would say, like, one is some of what we talked about earlier about, like, not having a theology of brokenness. I think that's part of last generation theology. That's a part of the perfectionist movements in the church, when we just can't realize that we are east of Eden. And do we go on sinning? No. Paul says, God forbid. Like, that's not the goal. But the reality is that people are born with problems and ailments and like, I was born with different issues with my mental health that my family generations carry. I couldn't fix that. Like, and that's not because Jesus blessed me with that and made me to struggle with these battles. And so I think, you know, that said, something I think I'm really tired of hearing is condemnation in the church around mental health care. And I know that this is a big hot thing. People say this to sound cool, like, oh yeah, the church needs to have counseling, yeah. But genuinely, like, I've been in going to therapy, and one of the things I've been going for years, and one of the things I'm working right now on in therapy is when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I don't want to take my medication. And my medication changes my life. It helps me so much. But there's been this deep thing rooted in me that it's somehow, you know I can't pray it away because Jesus has given me that peace. Like, hey, he says in Hebrews that Christ came once to deal with sin. He'll come again for those who are waiting. There's things we deal with in the waiting. But there is this pressure from Christians of like, well, how long are you going to be on the medication? Or how long are you going to, you know, and I just wish we could come to a place of realizing, like, how long are you going to wear shoes? How long are you going to wear glasses for? When are you going to quit wearing those? You know, like, let's start
What's
actually.
the line then? Where
What is the line? Like, when are you gonna stop taking Advil? Like, when the day comes that you have headaches, or when can you be free enough to not have to take Advil? And I'm over it. Yeah. I'm so over it because we have people in the church right now taking we have people that take opioids, which I'm not condemning them, but they're on hydrocodone because of extreme pain, and we don't judge them. We know they're in pain. We need to let them. But then if someone
Ozempic or something,
yeah. But then I was talking to a member recently who just got put on a benzodiazepine in a very responsible way, not to abuse it, not to go crazy, but it's like, oh, brother, like, you can't. And this person, like, has been experiencing extreme mental health issues, and it's helping them, and they're not abusing it, and they're not using it every day, and they're listening to their doctor. But brother, when are you gonna get, it's like, then stop taking heartburn medication too. You know, it's like, and maybe I'm jaded on this one as someone who's wrestled, just because I've had to deal with so much guilt, condemnation, and shame because of trying to find healing, when guilt, condemnation, and shame, one, are not from Jesus, and they only encourage and spur and cause more mental health problems in people. Yeah. And so I'm not saying just take pills, but I'm saying like, get help. And then we have mental health, physical health, spiritual health. Like, we're Adventists, we're holistic. So stop playing games and trying to treat every health issue with a spiritual fix when we don't do that. There's mental health fixes, there's physical health fixes, but then as pastors, as Christians, I think our job now is to help in a post-Christian culture to be able to say, hey, I think you're trying to treat that mental health issue as a mental health issue, but that's a spiritual issue. Can I help you with the spiritual side of things? And then, I think you think this is a spiritual problem, but I think you're actually experiencing mental health stuff. Can I help? Like, our job becomes then differentiating, okay, how do I help people find wholeness? And so I'm not gonna, people have traded the pastor for the therapist, so they're getting spiritual advice as well as the mental health stuff from the therapist. But a lot of Christians have traded the pastor for the therapist for the pastor. So then they go to the pastor for mental health care, they go to the pastor for marriage counseling, finance. No, like, that's not, I'm not specialized in that healthcare system. I'm specialized in the spiritual health system. So let me help you work with someone, and vice versa. So we all need both. Yeah. So
anytime I'm talking with someone, I'm like, and I'm not a psychologist whatsoever, and I'm not, and because like they'll be like, Pastor Mike, what do I? And I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you as a friend if you want just my general, but do not take this as 100. You know what I'm saying? So like, I get that what you're saying. Like, we need to be able to get help exactly where it can be best done, and there's so many resources out there. We live in out of all the bad things that we could say about the world and its state, one thing that's cool is that no other generation has had this many resources ever.
Never.
And so, in that aspect, we could say there is hope for us. There is there is a cool things that can change and transform, and that I've started to go. I mean, I'm coming from the Spanish side, bro, so they be hitting you with bro.
My family's all Italian, and it's similar with like there's like a real like we don't treat mental health. That's
I'm good,
but yeah, man. I think there's other fishy things. I think that there's a narrative in the church right now that what is an Adventist is a big problem. Like people are trying to control what that is.
Define it
more, and so they're pushing people out. And I'm seeing in the local church, like members trying to oust other members just because of an ideology they hold, not even something they're doing. And so, I think another cringy thing or fishy thing is we just gotta keep making the table bigger and wrestling with each other at the table. So
I think that's it, man. Like
wrestling in the John boat.
Now we're going to the bayou with the gators. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
But no, man. I think I got a lot from it. Sorry if you're still not on. If it wasn't for anyone, it was for me today. But no, it was awesome.
And I blabbed a lot. So
no. It's to get these stories. I think a lot of people want to see it, and like I think we don't have the chance to see it at the pulpit or see it you can't say every single thing, and so and even on pod you can't say every single thing, but it's at least a little bit more glimpse of what we go through, what we experience, as people, as individuals, and so man, I just want to say thank you again for being on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
I think my last thing is, and I don't do this as like a. Yeah, like you can find him but more so like if people genuinely have questions for you and they really want to they really connect to what you're saying, they want to know a little bit more. If you are free to share where they can find you, what. I can put some stuff at the description.
I'm definitely not trying to plug my gram or anything. There was a time where I would have loved to have done that when I was a little clout chaser boy back when I first started pastoring. So I appreciate you asking in the context of that. But it's my Instagram is kyl.smth, so Kyle Smith without the vowels. And just even if you don't, I'm not even asking people to follow me. If you just want to shoot me a message, it'll go in that weird requested message area. So maybe follow me. But I'm just down to clown anytime. Or you can email me pk@cmnskc.com.
Okay.
So
I'll have to text you back so we can put that in the description as well. But
perfect, man.
But yeah, man. So I don't do that for people because I remember when I first did it, I was just like, one of my friends was like, he's extremely nice. And so I was like, no, I'm doing that for more as a resource than actually trying to.
I want to help. Like I feel like we're all in this together, and we have to help each other.
Yeah. So I ended by saying thank you to everyone who's been supporting and watching. Man, do all the things as I say, like, share, subscribe, all the. We've done this. We're on YouTube. We know what it all is. And if you're listening on Spotify, all the things as well. I really want to, I haven't been seeing too many comments yet. We're still building a community, as I've been telling you. So just if you guys have any comments, I want to see any engagement with the thing. Any questions? If you didn't get to go to him and you want to ask it through the channel and I can get it to him, we have our numbers. We can share. We can talk. So thanks to everyone. Tune in for the next episode. Peace.